Does it
Perfect.
say does it say it's recording?
Does it say it's recording?
Yeah, do you
Yes,
see
it
that?
does.
How about that?
All right. Look at that.
Okay, look at that. Where does it
What
say
is
that?
that?
Where does it say it's recording at?
At the top of my screen. I've never
Oh,
seen that before.
how about those apples?
That's really neat. How did you do that?
I'm not telling.
All right. Welcome to the Popcorn Politics Addendum, everybody. This is the first edition. Uh, Daniel is back to talk about Man of Steel. Um,
I
so,
didn't really go anywhere.
no, you didn't.
Not really.
He's been here the whole time.
Whole time.
Uh, so in this segment, I want to get to a couple of the things we missed. Mainly the artistic style and the more Hollywood aspects of the movie, less about the writing and the meanings, more about just what was on screen. Uh,
Aesthetics.
yes, aesthetics. And the biggest thing I want to hit on is something we glossed over a bit in the hour, which is the score.
Mm.
The I have so many different themes saved into my playlist. Um, just your overall impressions of it. I know you gave a brief overview, but just what
It's
do you
Han.
think it did?
If I'm not mistaken, it's Hans Zimmer. Yeah.
It is Hans Zimmer, yes.
Okay. Well, anything like if I see Hans Zimmer, I just already know it's gonna rock my world. You know what I mean? He just I don't know. He knows how to make the soul vibrate. If that makes any, you know what I'm saying?
He
Like
does.
when you hear a Hans Zimmer piece, if you close your eyes and visualize, what I like to do is take powerful music, specifically like when I'm wanting to feel like a man of steel, or I need to channel that type of a, thing. I'll close my eyes and listen to a Hans Zimmer piece and imagine my own story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Imagine snippets of my own life. So basically, I'll make a movie trailer out of either what I've been through, what I'm going through, or what I want the outcome of things to be. I'll make a movie trailer in my head, and that music elevates that type of a thing. I don't know how Hans Zimmer does it. The man must be a very, very deep feeler because when you listen to any of his stuff, you feel it. Like you really,
You
really feel it.
really do. You really do. And the piece that I will always remember is the piece that comes when Kal-El flies for the first time.
Yeah.
What what a spectacle. Like it feels weird to it feels weird to call music a spectacle, but
Hmm.
it really is.
Hmm.
It just the entire build up and the visuals in that scene.
But when I was a kid, because I either wanted to be one of two things. I either wanted to be a writer or an actor, and so I dabbled with both. And I remember the second play that I ever did in elementary school was a stupid play, but elementary school plays can't be Shakespeare. But I played the main character, and it was Dick Clark, because the play was like it's supposed to be like at the sock hop and all this other. I don't know if you remember that. Oh, of course you don't remember that. You're a kid. But Dick Clark, he used to do American Bandstand and all that good stuff. So I played that character, and I had a line in it, which was an actual Dick Clark quote, which is, "Music is the soundtrack of your life," and that always stuck with me. Always stuck with me because it's the truth.
It really is.
When you're going through any deep emotional period in your life, we all listen to music, either on a conscious level or subconscious level. It's played in the background or whatever. Sometimes we really immerse ourselves into it. But let's say you're really going through a bad heartbreak. The music that is playing around your life while you're feeling those deep, intense emotions gets ingrained within you. And it could be, like a deep breakup, or it could be the opposite. It could be like you're unstoppable. Everything in your life is clicking into place. You're at a very high frequency of happiness and joy, and you got this music around you, and it just kind of it gets attached. It gets your neurons in your brain or whatever associate it. So that's why, like, years later, a song from a certain period of time in your life will play on the radio, and your emotions will snap back right to that time. So Dick Clark was right. Music is the soundtrack of your life, man. It really, really is. And I think like for Man of Steel, the score follows along with his journey, and he like what you're talking about the flight whenever he learns to fly, which is the kid. He already knows that he's different. He already knows he's alien. He already knows that he could do things other people can't do, but he has to come in contact with the consciousness of his father, and then get the answers he's been seeking to finally go, wait a second, my consciousness allowed me to believe that it was possible to be uber strong, to shoot laser beams from my freaking eyeballs. And so I've considered those things, but now that I have some more answers about who I am, where I come from, what my path in life could or would be, now I can evolve to, hey, maybe I could fucking fly,
Yeah,
right? And Hans Zimmer follows along with that, with the score as it builds and builds and builds as he's bouncing around. He's jumping at first like the Hulk, crashing into mountains, and the music just builds until finally as to quote another superhero movie or whatever, he frees his mind. And then the score, it's almost like the score lifts him up and propels him at Mach speed. And Hans Zimmer's
I
a
know,
genius
right?
with that. Hans Zimmer is a genius with that. He's just a genius.
Yeah, he really is. It's incredible what he managed to pull off there. But even just like a couple visuals that I really appreciated, um, uh, the tornado, just
Hmm.
that entire sequence. There's something about how it was filmed that just looked amazing.
Hmm. Yeah, it looked real.
It did. It looked real. And a lot of people complain about the saturation, like the color saturation in this movie.
Yeah.
No, no, it works beautifully.
No, I thought it was great. I thought the entire movie was shot brilliantly because I mean, to give a good contrast, it's like if it was just the right amount of visual epicness, and what I mean by that is, oh, now I can't think of his name. What's the homeboy that does all the Transformer? Michael Bay. Okay,
Yeah.
Michael Bay is like just 1 inch too freaking far with lens flares and epic surround hero shot. I mean, it's cool, but it's a little too in your face. The way Zack Snyder did this one is he takes it almost to that level, but he knows right when to reel it back in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Snyder is a very Zack Snyder is a very good visual storyteller.
Very good.
And even when like is say in a movie like Sucker Punch, which doesn't
He,
have a good
Zack Snyder did
script.
Sucker Punch?
He did do Sucker Punch.
I did not know that.
Yet even in Sucker Punch, which doesn't have a very good script in my mind,
I disagree.
um,
Another day.
another day. Um, the visuals in Sucker Punch are
Chicks
a
with swords and
feast.
guns and mini skirts and knee high stockings, dude. That's a brilliant script.
It's a visual feast, but shut up. Like that too, but
I watch it for the story.
of course you do. What story?
No, it's a bad. Anyway,
It
it is.
it has story like a porno has story.
Oh no, but that's another day. Back to Man of Steel. We'll talk
Yeah,
about Sucker Punch.
but
I do think that Sucker Punch is really a very cerebral movie, but again, another day.
another day. But what Man of Steel does so well is it does tell a very cerebral story, but with the same striking visuals of Sucker Punch.
Um, I think to a degree, but I think in this one he tries to make it more like what would it really look like if some people were flying around and stuff.
And
You know?
yeah, and I really appreciated that because
Yeah.
we do need a sense of realism.
And
Some
another thing is I like how, in the middle of fight scenes and flight scenes, every now and then he'll snap the camera far off from like the perspective of a bystander like me and you as to what it would look like. I thought that was brilliant. Absolutely. Because, oh, wow, that's what it would look like if Superman were flying around, dude. You know,
honestly, the best example of Snyder's ability to do that isn't even in this movie. It's in Batman versus Superman.
you know, um, off the top of my head, Batman versus Superman bleeds into Justice League, and it's hard for me to separate them. So before I could really speak to Batman versus Superman, I'll have to watch it again, give it another good watch.
Yeah,
Um, I
it's a
do
good.
know, I do remember that I absolutely loved Ben Affleck's Batman
Oh, Ben Affleck's Batman was brilliant.
in Batman versus Superman.
Yes, utterly brilliant.
Yeah. So I thought that was great, but that's another day too. So
Yes, it is. Um, but anyway,
Man of Steel visuals.
this, yeah,
Can I talk about some of the visuals I liked?
yes, absolutely.
We talked about it when we were live. But I mean, one of the main draws for me as somebody who studies religions, different faiths, and everything, is the whole motif of the Messiah. And we touched on it when we were live, but there's so much of it in this one, so much. I mean, one of my favorite shots is when he's up on the ship, he's up in heaven, and it's the last time he's going to talk to his heavenly Father, right? And his heavenly Father, says, "You can save them, Cal. You can save them all." And Cal just kind of falls back into space in the form of the cross. And it's like the glorified Christ at this point, because actually, if you go back to when he's a vagabond, if you remember when he's at the truck stop working, and that dude, that punk, pours beer all over him, and then humiliates him and throws a can of beer. If you actually look at the parable, that's whenever Christ was being scourged and getting mocked. You know what I mean? So does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, and which is funny because we just had Palm Sunday, so we're like in Holy Week right now and talking about this. But it's like, yeah, like that part of the truck driving, the truck stop part. Whenever he gets the beer, that's him getting the crown of thorns, being mocked and ridiculed. So when you get to him talking to his dad after uh, the hole in the side of the ship gets blown up and he's about to go back to Earth and can shoot down there and save Lois and everybody. I thought that was awesome. The visual of him in the form of the cross, and he's not.
God,
Yeah,
such a
it
good
was great.
visual.
Yeah, and it was like what he wasn't in pain anymore. He had finally um, come into his own, and he knew at that point he just embraced it. And that's when Zack Snyder's like, it's the Messiah. And look, I mean, Superman was created by two Jewish guys who, when they created the character, they sat down and they said, this is back in the 40s, I guess. They said, what would it be like if the Messiah came back today? And these two Jewish guys were like, well, he would be an alien for one, and then they just started running with that theme. And that's how Superman was created, was two Jewish guys in anticipation of their Messiah. And you get
Yeah.
Superman. Right?
Yeah, I mean it it can't be understated how much influence religion has over the entire creation of the Superman character.
Mm-hmm.
It,
Yeah.
I, and as much as I don't want to discuss that aspect of the character,
You have to,
you
Dylan.
have to. You have to.
You
Because
have to.
you have to. I agree. That's why we're talking about it.
But yeah, and even prior to that, I mean, following along with it, whenever Zod does his whole mass blast, you are not alone. That was creepy, dude. Can you imagine? What if that happened?
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People, I mean, look at what's going on right now with everybody panicking over stupid coronavirus. Imagine if all of a sudden all of our devices were like, "You are not alone."
Oh,
You know what
dude.
I mean?
I, dude, I don't know
You're
what I
you're
would
you're
do.
never gonna get a roll of toilet paper now. Never.
No, no.
But anyway, so when Zod does the whole, everybody's turning himself in, I'm an a-hole. You have Cal going into a church and he sits down and he's talking to the priest, and behind him is like Zack Snyder's like, look, guys, I already showed you once. Here it is again. Here's a big giant mural behind Cal of Christ in the Garden of Gethsemane. Right? Whenever Christ is praying, oh Father, let this cup pass from me, but not my will be done, but your will. He's in that, that was when Christ was at his moment of decision. Do I go to the cross or do I not? And you see Cal talking to a priest in the same similar situation, which is, do I turn myself in or do I not? Not my will, but thy
Yeah.
will be done. And it's like Zack Snyder's like, look, we're trying to tell you something. And then of course the most epic one is when he does go to turn himself into the military, like, you see the military come up and you see like the back of his cape fluttering. And then when it goes to show the front shot, the sun is almost blinding the camera and you kind of see a silhouette. So it's like the sun, he's the son of God. He's Ra. he's Christ, he's all of these solar myths. That's why he gets his power from the sun, the solar deity that is in every religion, and the basis of every religion is the sun. You know,
Yes.
it's what Zack Snyder's saying, man. It's funny too. You know, not to get off on the coronavirus, but it's like, oh, it's some stupid pandemic going on with some stupid virus. You guys need to stay indoors and stay away from the one thing that could help build your immune system and build you up to where you would be immune to any silliness like that. And it's the sun. Stay indoors. You know, they're encouraging you to stay away from sunlight. And it's like, I wonder why they call it the corona virus or the crown virus, the sun. Weird. I don't know. But I know Man of Steel's got a lot of sun symbology. That's all I know.
It absolutely does.
You know, just saying.
Ton of it.
Ton of it. And Zack Snyder pulls it off quite well.
No, I will never knock Zack Snyder as a director because I have some issues with some of his writing, but as I've stated multiple times, I don't. Besides maybe Christopher Nolan and Denis Villeneuve, I don't think there's a better visual storyteller out there.
Yeah. And he uses a lot of subtle stuff too, you know, that I think he's trying to tell us is we need to pay attention to. Like, for example, do you remember the flashback when he's out there outside of his dad's mechanic shop or whatever it is, and the bullies come over there and push him down on the fence? Remember that scene?
Uh-huh.
Do you remember what book he was reading?
No.
It was Plato's The Republic.
Okay, that I don't know if that's the best definition of subtlety, but
I mean, it's only a snippet in the scene where when they push him down, you see the cover of the book, and it's like, well, wait a second, you know this is kind of neat because it's saying that this young kid who normally would not be reading something as as thick as Plato, as deep as Plato, you have a kid who's like 12, who's like learning about he's studying, he's an apt pupil. You know what I mean? So it's not just all of his super uber duper physical powers, but you see that what it's also saying, or Zack Snyder's also saying, is a part of being Superman is cultivating the mind.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right.
And that would tie back into what we were talking about when we were live, which is the idea of a republic getting overthrown by Zod. So it's like, you know, it's like, wow, it's almost on some cellular epigenetic memory level, Clark Kent / Cal knows what happened to his civilization on some genetic memory. And so he's studying up on a republic, and he's balancing, you know, the physical with the spiritual, mental, and emotional, you know, because in that scene also you see a balancing of the emotional, because he could have knocked that kid's head clean off of his shoulders had he not been emotionally balanced. And, you know, physically he had to balance out by grabbing the post on the fence and squeezing the living hell out of it so he wouldn't react to this asshole's negativity and clock him in the freaking throat. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah.
So it's like, I like that Zack Snyder did that.
But what that shows is what we were talking about when we were live as well. The humanity of Clark. He's not perfect.
Right. No, but
yeah.
Yeah, and in that instance, it's like, you know, and it's very Christ-like, where, you know, Christ basically, whenever they're going to take him to the cross, you know, Pilate's like, dude, man, you know, what's up? Just tell them what they want to hear. And he goes, man, I'm not from this place. He said, if I was from this place, and basically if I willed it so, legions of angels would trample over this planet, and it wouldn't be a speck of dust if I willed it so, right? He had that much power, just like Clark Kent Cal has as much power to just he could have just clobbered knocked these bullies into the next state if he wanted to, and he chose to restrain himself, which is
commendable, better than most humans would do.
It's what I think Superman stands for. Like, one of the things he evokes within us is nobility, which is rare nowadays. Really, it's getting even rarer. Is men and women who genuinely act, you know, with nobility. I mean, I'm not saying that, you know, they do everything perfect, because sometimes you can act in nobility and make a mess of things, you know, seemingly. But it's cool to be. It's cool that this character was brought back in the way that it was in this movie, to kind of inject this generation with that type of a philosophy of holding doors open for women, and don't respecting your parents, and respecting the fact that you're an American, and respecting the fact that you come from, in his case, he comes from people of the land, and that's okay. And Zod even makes fun of him later. I trained all my life in the uber duber super Kryptonian training facilities. Where did you train? On a fucking farm? Looking down at him because he comes from meager beginnings. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But what I also appreciated more about this portrayal of Superman is he was very, in a way that the earlier portrayals weren't. Superman's first comic was him beating up a Nazi, beating up Hitler.
Way to go, Superman.
Way to go, Superman. Good. But this portrayal of Superman is for humanity, not just for a country, and I did appreciate that as well.
Yeah. Yes.
Superman fucks with the military in this quite a bit.
Well, and that's another thing we didn't get to talk about live. It does make a lot of statements about the surveillance state, and how an all-American Kansas boy with uber-duper powers is like, hey, Homeland Security, I got news for you. You see this spy satellite you got trying to invade my privacy? How about I slam this motherfucker in the desert? How about that? Respect my privacy. You know what I mean? I dug that.
I appreciate it.
I dug that, he was that is an American thing to do, and especially like with the crap going on right now. I don't want to get off on it, but
let's not.
Let's not get off on it. But I got a lot to say about what's going on right now, man. I can't wait to relaunch Zen on the car because, whoa, buddy. They're like, oh, buddy, let me tell you something. Anywho,
I'm glad I brought you back to podcasting with something so banal.
But yeah, well, I got some crap to say, Dylan. But anywho,
I know you do.
You do. I love this country, man. I love the principles that this country's founded on. I love them. I feel them, because they're universal and they're spiritual. Freedom, man. Freedom and liberty. And that's what Man of Steel is about. Is what does Dad say? He is born free to forge his own destiny. That is America, man. That's exactly what this country is supposed to be about. So no doubt Superman is a symbol of the ideals of America. And in this movie, Zack Snyder's like, okay, the ideals of America, what it means to be an American. We're going to show you what happens when it comes in contact with a surveillance state and the military-industrial complex. This is what happens. He trashes your toys. You know
what movie does that almost as well? Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
We could do a lot with that. Me and you need to do like 50 hours on Winter Soldier.
Dude, I love Winter Soldier.
Hours, okay, we need to do a year-long series on just Winter Soldier. That's it. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, I feel you.
Winter Soldier is a feast of a movie.
Dude, I was sitting there in the theater. Oh man, we're gonna get off on a rabbit trail.
But I do want to make a relevant point about Winter Soldier in comparison to this. Winter Soldier, in the way that the story is told, Winter Soldier is a script-heavy movie. Man of Steel is not a script-heavy movie.
I would agree.
Man of Steel is a visual.
It's a word picture.
It is, and I have mentioned at the top of the show that Man of Steel is the movie that showed me the power of filmmaking.
Yeah.
And I want to finally explain myself a bit on that. It's not the greatest movie ever made. It's not. But movies are a visual medium. And many movies, and this is not a negative, I love script-heavy movies, but no movie that I've seen, or not many, there are a few, not many movies that I've seen are as effective as a purely visual story than Man of Steel.
I would agree with that. I mean, I think that another visual, one that would be on par but in a different polarity would be Joker. So it's a good thing we're doing that next week. But that was that was visually, it's a darker but I think
Yeah,
it was a nice
but
yin to the yang of Man of Steel for sure.
but what I would also argue with Joker, and we'll get more into it next week, Joker is incredibly script heavy.
Yeah, it's both. It's
Yeah,
both.
and that's not a bad thing. I
No.
like script heavy, but I think okay, here's the best way to describe it. If I turned off the sound on Joker, I don't think I'd be able to follow it. If I turned off the sound on Man of Steel, I don't know I'd be able to follow it perfectly, but I'd be able to follow a lot of it.
Yeah, probably. Probably.
Like it's intuitive.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I said, it's the hero's journey, and if you read Heroes with a Thousand Faces by Campbell, I mean, it's it's every story, the hero's journey, and not only is it every story ever written or sung about or on a stage or on a screen, it's your story, and it's my story. It's almost I mean, it's inescapable. It's the code of where we live, is that journey. You're in the normal world, you get a call to adventure, you meet a wise man or some spiritual aid, you cross the threshold, you have to go through the road of trials, then you get to the Hades where you have to die basically, and then resurrect to get the ultimate boon, whatever it is, the chalice, the spear of destiny, the golden fleece, whatever it is. Could be a physical object or a principle. And with that attained after your resurrection, you have to come back to the normal world, to the status quo, to reboot the status quo into a new status quo. That's your life. It's
Yeah.
your life. You just have to go, what part of the journey am I in right now? You know? And Man of Steel is that. I mean, it's a really good representation of the hero's journey. Um, you know,
Yeah.
it's like, and it's so visual rather than trying to appeal to your left brain through script heaviness. It's appealing to your right brain, which is imagination, with the visuals more so. But it doesn't mean or detract from the depth of what you're experiencing story wise.
No, it doesn't. And look, I don't have much else that I want to sort of cover with this movie. Luckily, an hour and a half seems to be enough time. But I just, I cannot overstate how much I love what this movie said, what this movie managed to get across, and just how it did it. I don't love everything. I don't like the world engine. I think the world engine was stupid. Um,
Mm,
it didn't look it visually. I don't think it looked very interesting. It
I think what Zack Snyder was trying to pull there is, I think he was pulling from the Sumerian text, about the Anunnaki and terraforming, and
yeah,
that's why whenever we were talking about the empty cryogenic chamber, and it possibly suggesting that the Kryptonians are the genetic seed of humans, I think that's what he was trying to hint at is the Sumerian scrolls, or cylinder seals, which talk about that. You know what I mean? And
yeah. I
so
I
I
yeah,
think he was tethering that to the world engine, and the notion that, hey guys, the Sumerian cylinder seal said that some ancient race came down here and terraformed, and then they created us, and yada yada. I think that's what he was trying to kind of wink at.
just on like I don't disagree that that's probably that could very well be where he was going, but just in terms of how it works on screen, I don't, in principle, like the idea of an action set piece being against a faceless, emotionless, sort of lifeless thing. Uh,
Yeah, but yeah,
conflict,
but then you get to Zod, and you get that.
yeah, and that's amazing. But
Yeah.
conflict is only good when you have conflicting motivations and morals to go with it. Otherwise, the world engine felt a bit like visual noise. Luckily, it didn't last long.
Hmm.
Um, but I mean, again, that's like the only complaint I have about the movie. It, it's a it's an almost perfect superhero movie.
Yeah, I mean, it was it certainly. certainly caught my attention as somebody who couldn't care less for Superman prior, and it really got me to look into the character and see the value in the character. So Zack Snyder did that. But there is another, like, I wanted to expound upon the character of Lois Lane because we were really racing against the clock.
Yeah, we
Uh,
were.
so
Yeah,
it was like,
go
yeah,
ahead.
you try to get in everything you can on live, and sometimes you could come off sounding like an asshole. You know what I mean? So I hope I didn't come off as like an anti-feminist or whatever with the character. What I was trying to say is, um, what the Marvel movies are doing with the ideals of feminism or promoting the equality of the sexes is, if you picture a seesaw and you have masculine and feminine on either side. I would concur that for the past few centuries we have been in a patriarchal society that has been male driven. I get it. I get that as that type of power dynamic, the longer it lasts, the more corrupt it becomes in the leaning towards the masculine in our era.
Yes.
No doubt. And do I think that that's right? Of course not. Um, so there must be balance between the two. And so then you have the feminist movement that kind of popped up in American culture, in the past few decades anyway. Not few decades, but quite a few decades. And that's great because the seesaw towards the feminine, the fairer of the sexes, starts to balance out. And
Yes.
I
And
think
entertainment has kind of fallen behind, but it's catching up.
it's catching up. And so I think that we're at a point where this is where I think we're at. I think we're at a period where it's balanced for the most part, but
I,
it teeters back and forth like a tug of war almost
I
between matriarchy and patriarchy right now.
see.
Okay?
Uh, yeah, can I just interject really fast?
Sure.
I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't think we're at balance yet. Um,
Where do you
I
think it's at? Leaning matriarchy or leaning patriarchy?
I think it's still leaning patriarchy. And if you're doing percentages, I think we're probably at 60-40 or 55-45.
Okay.
We're,
All right.
we are getting closer. We are doing
Okay.
much better.
Okay. And maybe, yeah, I would probably, I'll go with your numbers on that. I see it shifting back and forth right now, but I would also agree with you on it. And so I think, yeah, it's great. Look, I thought that the scene with, I thought the scene where, for one thing, in Infinity War, the scene where I think Scarlet Witch or whichever one's in the ditch and the alien chickadee that comes with Thanos, she's like, "You'll die alone" or whatever the hell. And Black Widow says she's not alone, and all the female leads are in that ditch fighting with one another. Right? I thought that was great. That was just the right amount of, hey guys, respect women because they're powerful too. That was okay. When it got to Endgame, I thought that the scene where all of the
Yeah,
females congregate together and Captain Marvel pops up and she's supposed to be like the apex of feminine power and divinity in the Marvel universe, and they all showed up for that hero shot. I thought that was pushing it.
I see. I understand. I wasn't bothered by it, and here's my defense of it. Um, we have scenes like that all the time with male characters. It's equally as incomprehensible when it's a bunch of male characters suddenly united. I don't know. I'm not bothered by it because in a perfect 50-50 split, yeah, you're going to have some scenes where it's all females congregating.
Right.
It's just
Well, I mean,
natural.
and what I'm doing is I'm saying in conjunction with, like, in the comic books right now, or in the past few years, it's been like, well, if you got a Spider-Man, you got to have a Spider-Woman. If you got a Batman, you got to have a Batwoman. If you got a Joker, you got to have a Harley. If you know what I mean, just for the sake of it, it's like,
Oh,
God damn it, tell me good stories with good characters, not politically correct characters. Like, for example, Laura X-23, the Wolverine clone, right?
I
That
can
that
I
does
just say I fucking love Logan.
Logan's great. Yeah, I'm talking about from the comic version too.
Oh, okay.
Like I've been like I actually have the first and second issue of the first appearance of X-23 in a comic called NYX. I have those first run copies signed by the artist, dude, because as soon as I read that character, okay. on face value, you could be like, ah, she's just a female Wolverine. But if you actually know her story, it's a very well written character, female character that is there from the get go, not to be politically correct and not to market comic books to females because in the first comic she's a prostitute. That's not a good. That's not a good beat. You know,
No.
she's a sadomasochist. You know, she's a self harmer. She cuts herself. She cuts her johns. She's a whore.
So
That's not a good uh, image for a female lead.
yeah,
But it's such a very well written character. So when you do that with a female character, great. But when you just like, oh, we're just gonna have a generic Spider Girl, oh, just
so
because, you know what I
can
mean? That's
I
stupid.
make my defense again?
Sure.
I'm not going to defend badly written characters because characters are badly written all the time. What I
Right.
will say though is there are plenty of storylines that are written about male characters that are just done to sell comic books to a specific demographic, and they also suck. So
No, yeah.
equality involves everything.
Yeah.
Equality also involves bad stories written just to market.
Yeah, well, I agree with you 100%. But so, and that what I'm saying is, all right, you know, you have to kind of, I don't know, I like it balanced. I like good storytelling, not just an agenda, a political agenda. So, and I don't mind, you know, I'm not intimidated by a woman in her own power, and I like to see that portrayed because it's cool. I mean, I'm one of the novels I was kicking around, the lead was a female, and you know, it was cool to get inside that character's head or to watch it in my mind's eye. You know, it was a cool character. It came from wherever. But like with Lois Lane, though, why I think like she's an unspoken. I think that the feminist movement should really look at Lois Lane too, because it's like um, with say Captain Marvel, it's trying to, from my point of view, and this is just my opinion, it would kind of send the message that to be a woman in your power or to be a a strong whatever woman, you have to be uber powered and it almost with the attitude of I don't need no man. You know what I mean? This is a girl's world. You know what I'm saying? Which is that's what the men were doing for so long that got us into this trouble. You can't do that. But
Yeah.
Lois Lane is a powerful woman with no superpowers except for just stubborn determination and faith. You know, she has faith in Superman, you know, when nobody else would. And she, against logic, sometimes, comes to his aid and his support. And it's like, dude, you know, if it hadn't been for her believing in him, those moments where he himself had self doubt, you know, I don't believe that self doubt would have gone away if he had not had a feminine counterpart that was strong enough in faith to say, you know, basically, you can do this, you know?
See, okay. So I think this gets to the core of our, I don't want to say disagreement, miscommunication on this point. See, I don't think that the, yes, Lois is a very good support character. She is strong and she does help Clark overcome that self-doubt. And that
Yeah.
is incredibly valuable to the story. And she's a good love interest character. She's great at that. She
Yeah.
is a great support character. But I think the disconnect comes with the the argument from the feminist movement, and to be clear, I cannot speak for them, but the argument that I've heard is, yeah, but women always play the support character. It's a good character, but it's the character we've always played. And I think it's a good character, but I think she's actually given more to do and actually given a more independent, functional role in Batman versus Superman.
Again, I mean, I'll have to watch it again. I remember bits and pieces from it. And I know her part was significant, you know, with uh, getting him out of the, what was it, underwater with the spear that
Yeah,
Batman
and
made?
in the extended edition, which came out on Blu-ray afterwards,
Yeah.
she is central to investigating Lex Luthor.
Hmm.
So like she's the first one to connect all the dots.
Well, there
with
you go.
Lex Luthor and Batman.
Well,
She's
there you go.
actually given something to do in that independent of Superman. And I think that's where my challenge comes in because she's a great support character, but the idea of the feminist movement is to transition to leads. And Lois is not really a lead in Batman and Man of Steel, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I guess you would. I mean, because the movie is called Man of Steel, so
Of
duh.
course. Yeah, nobody
But
comes to a
no,
Superman movie to see the Lois Lane story. But regardless, Batman versus Superman did give her
all
her
I'm
own
so,
story.
all right.
And
This is the best way to boil down my point. Okay, Dylan. If I go into a box store to the women's clothing section, I'll find sleeping attire and t-shirts and shorts and jackets that have Wonder Woman on them, okay? That have Spider Woman on them, that have Captain Marvel on them, but they're nowhere in the women's section do I find any clothing that's got images of Lois Lane. That's all I'm saying, and
no,
it's
no,
like
and
that's kind of balls,
I
you know?
agree with you. It just to be clear, I agree with you. I just I was more trying to make a distinction than an argument.
Right. I mean, I get it. I'm just saying, look, uh, being a supportive female of the male is also noble too, is all I'm saying. And it goes back to,
Absolutely.
Psalms, the Psalm 31 woman or whatever, or Psalm, I don't know, Psalm 31 or 2. I don't know which one it is. It's been a minute since I've been to Sunday school. But, the wise woman that speaks only honor of her husband, and while he's at the gates doing his business, and she takes care of what she's got to take care of, and she's always backing her dude, and that's what gives him honor. And you know what I'm saying? I mean, that's still noble.
Oh,
It's still a
absolutely.
noble niche of the female role. Not every role for powerful females is to be Captain Marvel. There,
No, no,
Mhm.
absolutely. Yeah, I was more trying to make a distinction than argue with you.
Mhm.
I'm sure it came across like I was trying to argue.
Oh, nah, me and you ain't arguing, dude. We're movie geeks. Sheesh, we can't argue.
We are movie geeks.
Hey, we're gonna get mad at each other because you like this movie, I don't like this one.
I,
Ah.
by the way, I absolutely want to discuss Captain Marvel at some point because I think that movie is just, it's brilliant.
I loved it. I
Yeah,
love all of it. I love if it's you give me a good story, and I love it. I don't care if it's a dude or a chick or a dude and a chick or a non-binary or whatever. Just give
yeah.
me a good
I'm,
story with a good with
yeah.
good characters.
I'm
Mhm.
just, yeah. And I'm
Well,
glad we can be at that point where we can say, just give me a good story with anybody.
yeah, and also in life, in my real life, when I'm not pretending on the internets, uh,
Oh, you're always
you know,
pretending on the internets, Daniel.
oh, I'm never pretending on the internets. I've,
Ah.
the people in the internet box are upset with me, so I've hurt feelings. I've offended people. Anywho,
I'm sure you have.
but and Chuck can attest to this. Me and Chuck we're actually friends in real life. We actually hang out. He lives like just a few minutes from me, so we hang out a lot.
I am kind of jealous.
Yeah, it's a cool relationship he and I have, and him and his family. But so he's actually like off the air. He's a part of my life, my regular everyday life, and I am a part of his regular everyday life. The cool stuff that nobody who listens to stuff really gets privy to, but it's cool. And so he's like a big brother to me sometimes, and sometimes I'm a big brother. We kind of shift back and forth. But he'll see me go about my life and certain decisions that I'll make with a very cocky attitude, I might add. Even
Is
I
there anything you don't do with a cocky attitude?
sleep.
No, I'm sure you sleep with a really pompous look.
Probably so. But like even myself, like I've run the logistical numbers of a certain decision I'm about to make, and I know it might run me into some messed up crap. And Chuck sits there with this look on his face, and he'll try to be like, "You sure you want to make this particular decision? Because I don't know if you've considered all of the ramifications." And I have, and I know the ramifications, and some of them may be screwed up, but I always smile at him and I go, "Yeah, but it'll be a good story." You know, you know what I'm saying?
You do seem like the type to do that.
I
And I
do.
do Yeah.
I do screwed up crap. Just it's because look, man, that's what this is. That's what life is. It's a story. It's a game. I mean, don't do any harm if you can,
No,
but
no, don't do any harm.
Enjoy yourself.
Absolutely. And I enjoy myself by talking about movies.
Me too. I mean, it's a mirror of us. You know, you know that there are moments in your life where you've accomplished something, and that was the odds of you accomplishing it or doing it or lasting that long or enduring were so impossible and so insurmountable, and you knocked that motherfucker in the jaw and felt like Superman. You know that you've had those moments in your life. For you,
Yeah.
it might have been a term paper or a debate with somebody, or it could have been a contest or, anything. But that was your moment to fucking snap Zod's neck. And that's the voices of the world or other people saying, you can't do this. You know that there are moments where you felt like Superman. And so that movie speaks to you, and if
Yeah.
you've been around the block a little bit, you've had experienced moments of fucking intense tragedy and sadness and just the dark night of the soul and Superman getting buried in a mountain of skulls, or little Peter Parker underneath an entire warehouse of debris, a scared little kid screaming for help, having to look at a reflection of his mask and say and pull from within himself, Spider-Man, come on, Spider-Man, come on, his dual identity, and just push up past all of that weight, all the weight of trauma, just a life filled with just heartache, and he pushes up and comes out of
Yeah.
that. You know what I'm saying? We see ourselves in these characters, and that's why we fucking love movies, man. So all these
Yeah.
assholes who are like, "Oh, you're draining your brain and all this other good stuff." It's like, no, dude. To me,
Nah, I'm enriching my life.
exactly, exactly. These stories are us. It's us. I mean, in a couple hundred years, man, there's going to be a religion about Superman and the Matrix, and hopefully, and Spider-Man, and they're gonna. There will be a group of society that will tell their history, and it'll be fucking Infinity War, because our stories are. That's what self-perpetuates us on not a genetic level, but a spiritually philosophical level, is the stories we tell each other, you know? And
Yeah.
you and I live in a time where storytelling is so good right now. Because when I was a kid, Dylan, I would walk miles to Comics Castle and read these about these heroes and have to use my mind's eye, the movie screen in my head, to try to picture like what would it be like to see this, me reading the actual comic
Yeah.
from panel to panel. Like,
We yeah.
go ahead.
We truly are in a golden age.
Hmm. I mean,
Uh,
and then you hope that one day they'll make a good movie when you're like in the 80s, and they have the shitty Captain America and the shitty Dolph Lundgren Punisher, and you're like, oh crap, they're ruining my comics, right? And then when Sam Raimi did the first Spider-Man, everything changed.
uh,
Everything
even
changed.
even before that, with the first X-Men.
Yeah, you're right. Well, did X-Men come out before?
I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure X-Men came out a couple years prior.
you're right. You're absolutely correct. So yeah, X-Men changed. X-Men is the one that changed the game. Spider-Man Supernova, the whole thing, to where it was like, hey,
And
we can actually do a really good superhero movie with a good script, good visuals, good actors.
yeah. And then uh, Avengers, you can't discount the importance of that movie. It
Dude,
it skyrocketed. It put everything into light speed.
dude, when I was a kid, the possibility of seeing all those heroes, the Avengers, in a movie done well was every little kid from the 80s wet fucking dream.
Yeah,
Okay?
and we got it. We got
Yeah.
four.
And we've got it. And they're not screwing it up.
No.
Oh my God, it's so fantastic how they're not screwing it up. They're perfectly taking the format of the Marvel universe, and they're perfectly doing it on the screen, how they all intertangle and everything. It's brilliant, dude. We live in such a wonderful time for storytelling. Wonderful time.
Yeah,
Wow.
we really do. We really really do.
And Man of Steel was one of the critical ones of it.
Yeah,
And
I mean, I, so it's another movie I'm gonna get into, but if If Man of Steel showed me the power of visual storytelling,
Hmm.
Lord of the Rings showed me the power of narrative storytelling.
Yeah, that when Lord of the Rings were coming out, that was during my heavy drinking days, so I'll get back to you. That's
I was really late to the party on Lord of the Rings. I didn't watch Lord of the Rings till probably 2015.
Yeah, well, those movies are a flicker to me. No, I have seen them quite extensively. Yeah, that would be a good show to do because there's obviously, with what was going on with Tolkien and what he was trying to embed in that story, there's way too much to talk about in an hour.
It is, but with the YouTube channel that I'm absolutely starting once I want to get a backlog of enough content.
Hmm.
Um, Once I start a good YouTube channel, I will do deep dive video essays on these movies.
Cool, man. I'll be there with you,
Abs
dude, because
Absolutely.
it's, you know, I'm a storyteller. And movies are a part of it, and I love cinematography, and I've dabbled with it. I always thought it'd be cool to write a novel and then see that novel on the screen one day. Hopefully that'll still happen. Um,
Yeah, and even with TV, like TV has become such a great medium lately.
um, I mean, I'm totally streaming everything,
Right,
and
but like shows like Game of Thrones, you never would have gotten that even in the movies.
no, I'll tell you one thing, and this is, we might be trailing off of Man of Steel. That's okay, but because this is the first little addendum deal, so that's pretty neato. But
Yeah,
I want to do a hardcore uh, review slash breakdown of Star Trek Picard
I
because
I do have to watch Picard still.
I'm going to tell you something. I know there's some like old school Trek fans that are just taking a dump all over this new batch of Star Trek that we've been getting, like with Discovery and now Star Trek Picard. Look, I'm the biggest Star Trek fan that you can imagine, and this is the way I look at it. More Star Trek is more Star Trek. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to complain, dude. We've been really dry from really good Star Trek since Enterprise. It was like 15 years ago, dude. And the three movies, that didn't fill my appetite. I mean, I
Yeah,
dug
I
them.
I liked the three movies. I
I did.
particularly liked Beyond, the third one.
Yeah, I love Beyond. I thought it was great. And all these
Yeah.
Star Trek fans are like, And I'm like, dude, more Star Trek is more Star Trek. But with Picard, there's one I have a very emotional tie to the Next Generation in that series.
I still
Um,
need to watch Next Generation too.
yeah, it's good. It's a good bit of philosophy. I love Star Trek because of science. A lot of science fiction, man. Like when it shows the future, it's usually bleak as hell. It's always like after an apocalypse or after World War III or after an alien invasion. Humanity is typically bullshit and we're the trash of the fucking galaxy. Star Trek is nothing like that, and it's quite the opposite. And it's like, dude, like one of my favorite stories about Gene Roddenberry is when people would talk about how aliens built the pyramids, that would upset him and offend him more than anything you can imagine. And he would go, God damn it, aliens didn't do that. That's what we did. We are capable of doing things like that. We slight ourselves by saying that mankind couldn't build the pyramids. Now, I don't necessarily agree with Gene Roddenberry that we did. I happen to think that it's probably with some other explanation for them. But I dig that philosophy that he had that mankind is capable of achieving great, great things. And like, I don't even want to get off on this, but this is something that the whole flat Earth thing offends me. It's like, look, I don't believe everything that NASA has to say, okay? And I don't believe that the images that we saw from the Apollo landings and all that, I don't believe they're all necessarily what happened. But damn it, we landed on that moon, man. Okay? We
Yeah, come
probably
on, guys.
yeah, we did that. We did. We went into space. We are in space. We are capable of doing things like that. We are capable of creating a future that's very much like Star Trek. And not some totalitarian one world government, but a one world republic, which is what Star Trek is talking about. It's a republic. You have civil rights. So like when I hear people like Alex Jones talk about Star Trek's talking about a one world government, it's like a one world republic if you are a hardcore Star Trek fan.
Yeah,
So
like that's the thing. One world government is not a dirty concept.
not if we're going to go to the
Yeah,
stars.
not a, on
If
paper, it's not a dirty concept at
Yeah,
all.
dude. I mean, if we're going to go to the stars, we got to get our shit together collectively as the human race. And I do believe that if there are extraterrestrials out there, whatever, they probably this planet is under quarantine because right now we don't have our shit together. They're not going to let us go out into space. You know,
Would
they
you?
now no. I would isolate and quarantine and watch them and pray for them. I guess you let them have their free will and hope that they evolve past their petty differences and their stupid decisions to do things like rape Mother Earth, like in Man of Steel, and fight over petty things like sex and your political affiliations, which is a joke, and the pigmentation of the color of your skin suit. All these stupid things that are still out there. I mean, so it's like, no, I wouldn't let us into space at this moment. So it's
Yeah.
like we're all quarantined, like literally on the planet right now. So we got to sweat this virus that's been eating away at humanity for a long time. And I think that's what we're doing, and I think we're telling that ourselves that through films like this. You know, um, I mean, I believe it. I believe that art is coming from the fountain of the human soul. And ultimately, the human soul is one with all. So it's like we're telling ourselves stuff through this art. And it's brilliant, if you know what you're looking at. And you could always tell you could tell the ones who are kind of fucking up the vibe and fucking up the furtherance of the human species because they typically operate in fear. And they're the ones who are like, they got the YouTube channels and the blogs where they're like, we're going to decode this satanic movie. This movie's satanic. If you look at the pyramid or the diamond on Man of Steel's chest, if you turn it upside down, it's a pyramid, and that means the Illuminati. This is an evil movie, and Zack Snyder eats babies and drinks adrenochrome. You know what I'm saying? It's like, get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out
I
of here.
know.
Give me a
That
break.
that's why I left because we do the conspiracy crowd really does operate on fear and they don't this is a very different point, but they don't operate from an intellectually honest perspective
No, they don't.
where
No, they do
they
not.
where they look at like they were all saying, "Oh God, Obama's gonna put us all in camps," and I say, "Okay, but that didn't happen. So are we gonna reevaluate? No, we're just gonna keep going like we didn't say that. Okay, I can't be part of this.
Oh, man, dude.
Hey,
Yeah,
guys, where's the martial law? I heard
dude.
that was here.
I don't know, Dylan. This is what I do know. I do know that there are only two novels that I've ever read that gave me nightmares. And I'm talking about from a dead sleep, waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning with lines from these two books uh, pumping through my head. Uh, and one was Bram Stoker's Dracula, because that genuinely is a creepy ass book. It's none of if you get past the whole imagery of, I want to suck your blood, if you actually read Bram Stoker's Dracula, that shit's creepy, dude. But the one that really, 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 really fucked with me was George Orwell's 1984 because,
Yeah, it's a great book.
oh, it's a terrifying book. Terrifying. And I would wake up with the line, if there's any hope, it's in the proles. If there's any hope, it's in the proles. If there's any hope, it's in the proles. And, so the reason that book was so terrifying for me when I read it back in 2008, I think, and that was the first time I really read it. I mean, it was mandatory reading in school, but whatever. I was chasing skirts in high school, so. But about 2008, I really, really read it. Now I'd seen the movie, so I already knew, but I wanted to read it for myself, because a lot of people just watch movies of books and they go, "Yeah, I read that book." You didn't read the fucking book. You watched the movie because you gave me the alternate ending of Homeboy's cut of Hannibal or something, where Clarice and Hannibal don't get together, whereas in the book they do. So don't tell me you read the book. You didn't. You know what I mean? People like that. You know what I'm
Yeah,
talking about?
yes,
I,
I do.
yeah, so I'm so smart. I read the book. You watched the movie, okay? That's what you did. So I didn't want to be that asshole and be like,
So
yes,
you actually read the book?
Yeah, so I actually read the book.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was
What a
terrifying.
concept.
Yeah, it was terrifying because in 2008 I was getting heavy into my political activism, and like around Georgia, like I used to be an auditor, so I traveled all around Georgia every day, and I started to notice, I mean, legitimately, uh, like threat fusion centers getting built all around my state near main waterways, rivers, and railroad tracks. And it was creepy to see that happening all over the state of Georgia when, the Patriot Act was booming and all this other good stuff. It was creepy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they are there. And as far as like those coffin liners up in Atlanta, yeah, that was for real because I touched them. I went to Atlanta and to go to Dragon Con, and they were there for sure. So it's like that's disturbing. So so what do you do with that information? Live in fear, live in fear of a possibility of something that may happen, and just be consumed with paranoia that everyone could possibly be like a fucking Fed or a fucking MK Ultra agent and fucking it's like you're not that important. The guy, you know what I mean? You're not like, for example, there's a character on the internet who, there. I don't know if you heard of this crap called targeted individuals.
No.
Yeah. Well, don't waste your time. Basically it's a group of people who feel in some way or another that they are quote targeted individuals end quote. Okay, so what does that sound like a targeted individual is to you from a conspiratorial point of view, Dylan?
These people are probably thinking that they are being subtly influenced to do things by the government because they are actually crazy.
Okay, but you said it. I didn't say it. You just said that. And for that, you are a rock star, good sir, and I virtually fist bump your ass. You
Like,
said it.
yes, I
I,
did,
I,
and I
I
don't
have
take it back.
I have plausible deniability on that one. All right?
No, you're virtually fist bumping me. You are a
Or,
guilty party.
no,
Um, cut
I,
out the part about the state I live in.
okay. So
These targeted individuals are likely to come
okay.
after people who doubt the validity that they're being mind controlled.
It's an interesting group for sure. Um, so anywho, by what means do you imagine, Dylan, that these targeted individuals believe that the government is influencing their thoughts and actions? By what means could you come up with if you had to, if you were a conspiracy theorist?
Like frequency, drugs, uh,
Okay. Okay.
drugs.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know, voices in their head because
Okay.
they're actually crazy.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
What do you got?
Yeah. No, you're nailing it, dude. You're batting 1,000 or whatever the fuck. 300. I don't know sports. Batting 300, batting 1,000. I don't know, but you're nailing it. Yeah.
Uh,
Okay. Okay. So these targeted individuals
oh,
are
one more. Subliminal messages placed
subliminal.
in entertainment that they think are meant specifically for them.
Okay.
Again, because they're psychos.
Okay. Well, you said that also, and I did not say that. However, um,
We should just not upload this segment.
this is so getting uploaded. So getting
Daniel.
uploaded.
Daniel.
So much. It's great stuff. It's good. Anywho, so targeted individuals, okay, they're being targeted by government entities or something. Maybe aliens. I don't know. It just depends on how much in Molly they've done. I don't know. Um, but okay, so it's like, can you think of anything? And usually these people are like, well, what did you do for the government to target you? And they give you like, what would you imagine their story would be when you ask them a question like that? Or you go, hey, so let me get this straight. You're being targeted by the government. And they're like, uh-huh. And you're like, well, how? And they're like, well, they're beaming messages through my microwave, and they're telling me to do this or that. And then there's cars parked
Guys,
outside.
tinfoil.
Well, you know what I'm saying? And so they go off on that. And then you get to the ultimate question, which is this. Well, you know, why? What makes you so important? because from my point of view, dude, it is extremely narcissistic of you
Oh God, yeah.
to believe that you're so fucking important and you do so much to upset the established order or disrupt the matrix or whatever, that the entirety of the government is going to pull resources to watch you play Call of Duty after 7 days with no sleep, and you're getting voices and transmissions sent to you through the fillings in your teeth. How narcissistic of you to believe
Yeah,
that.
really, really.
Okay. However, that being said, I will not deny that in fact there are legitimate targeted individuals. Okay. But their stories sure as hell aren't, I watch a lot of YouTube videos about government conspiracies. If you're not actively fucking up the machine like a cog in a machine that's turning the other way, if you're not actually doing shit like activism or using your art and your outlet to affect change in the hearts and minds of the people that can turn around totalitarianism on a spiritual and political level and every other level, if you're not doing that, the government ain't paying you any goddamn mind.
And
You're
frankly,
policing yourself.
even if you are doing all those things, they're probably still not going to pay you any mind because most people are doing it on such a small scale that it manages itself.
Yeah. I mean, so
Like
anyway,
unless you're reaching like 100,000 people, they're not going to pay attention to you.
yeah, I mean, yeah, look, I mean,
You and I are not on any list.
I'm on lists for sure. And I
Okay,
know that
you
for a
might
fact.
be on a list. I'm
Yeah,
not on a list.
I am. So, I know it's real, dude. I know that there's a machine out there that can, like with what's going on right now. I mean, I get it, but it's I'm trying to contain myself about the things that I have to say about what's going on with this quarantine and all this other good stuff. I got a lot to say about it, and I'm trying to hold it in. Um, but Dylan, I got to say, man, I go around my town, and I live right next to the biggest logistical Air Force base in the world. And this town's very military, pro-military, and we try to be pro-vet. But they call us the international city, even though we're in the South, we're in Georgia. This town that I'm in is got every culture you can imagine because of the Air Force Base, you know. Um, so it's very culturally diverse here. And for the most part, I think that even on a surface level, a lot of the people in my community are patriots and they love their country, though they are ignorant of exactly what their country's supposed to stand for, you know. And it, uh, so I'm going around my town and I'm like, all of these people are acquiescing to a governor that, and from my point of view, Governor Kemp, who's the governor of Georgia, and now I'm really going to go on another list again because the last governor put me on the Department of Homeland Security's watch list. So after I say this, I'm sure that Kemp's going to have me reevaluated, and that's okay. I don't mind. I don't mind being the cog turning the other way. But he gave a,
Don't get me put on a list.
oh, dude, if you're in contact with me, you've been on a list, dog. So, and that's okay. It's okay. Don't panic, as Douglas Adams would say. But this guy goes on TV the other day in my state, man, and I love my state. It's great culture here. I used to not appreciate it so much, but as I've gotten older, I do. But he goes on TV the other day and he's like, "I am issuing an executive order." This guy's and that executive order, basically, I'm paraphrasing. We're we're doing an in-home shelter executive order, and uh, if you disobey, if you do not comply, and Dylan, when I hear comply, when I hear that word, my back gets up. You know,
Yeah,
I'm my
I
dad,
know.
I'm my daddy's boy. When I hear somebody say you will comply, right then and there, somebody's about to get punched in the fucking nose. And like my daddy said, you may get the hell beat out of your son, but make sure they remember you were there. So it is what it is. But that dude's, if you don't comply, you will face stiff penalties. Uh, And anybody who doesn't stay at home, yeah, wait, this retard goes, hypothetical. Anyway, he goes, what did he say? How did he word it? Uh, basically, he said, coronavirus and COVID-19 could be in somebody without them even having symptoms. So it's like basically he's saying it could be anybody, anywhere, just like those magical, mystical terrorists that could be anywhere after 9/11. It's, oh, where are they at? So he's like, coronavirus could be anywhere, even if you don't have any symptoms of anything, and you don't have, dude, for one thing, it's being spread through mucous membranes. So unless you're spitting on motherfuckers, you're cool. Okay, two, it's hitting people with low, like compromised immune systems already. And like I had a dude that I talked to the other day. I don't want to discuss his name, but like he's one of these Americans that are just terrified. And we have to stay at home and we have to stay 6 feet apart. We are very good Americans. We do what they tell us over the intercom. We stay as a 6 feet apart. Okay? And they're fucking panicking. This dude's like staying 6 feet away from me. Like he's like, and I go, dude, it's like it's only affecting folks with compromised immune systems. He's like, no, you don't understand, man. You don't understand.
Like, I've got a compromised immune system. I'm staying home.
Well, yeah. So he's like, my best friend, man, he was the first to die of coronavirus in Georgia. He was 72 and he had like a colostomy bag. And I'm sitting here going, dude, you just said what I said, which is, people with compromised immune systems, man. Do you not hear what you're saying? You know what I mean? But that fear, he's afraid. And there's so many people in my community, and it's like I've drive through the town. It's a ghost town. It's like I'm Will Smith from I Am Legend, and I'm sitting here going, dude, I'm a little disappointed in my fellow countrymen right now, because this asshole signs an executive order and then says it's going to an effect Friday, and we're not even going to tell you what's in it until it's after it's in effect. So I'm going to sign an executive order without asking my constituents, and then we're gonna put it into place and we're gonna enforce it, and then a day later we're gonna tell you what's in it. It's like what is this called? What would Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson and George Washington call this? Oh, they would call it treason by sedition. Okay, treason by sedition. And I know we talked about this. I don't know if did we talk about me going to the bookstore?
No, but I actually, Daniel, I'm sorry. I know you could go for a lot longer, but I actually gotta go.
Man, that sucks. Cancel that date.
No, it's not I don't have a date, but if I did, it wouldn't be getting canceled.
Well, let's wrap it up and cap it off, man, so I have a good place to go snap.
All right, so that concludes our not discussing Man of Steel.